Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 37 in the book of Ephesians. This is season 13 of Be With Me. We're walking through the New Testament. We're in the book of Ephesians, the 13th book. I'm going to title today, I Love Myself, just to get your attention. So I noted yesterday that I didn't miss any meals when I was hungry. I slept when I was tired. I made sure I recreated when I wanted to. When I was cold, I put a sweater on. I took care of myself all day long and all night long, and I loved myself all day yesterday. I made sure that my needs were met. So what does that have to do with the passage today? Well, he's going to use that and say, go with that idea. Go with the idea of how much you love yourself and how much you take care of yourself. Because husbands, you are going to need some insight into how you're supposed to relate to your wife, how you're supposed to love your wife. So he says, start there, but he doesn't say stop there. The stopping is, he says, start with your love for yourself, but then end with the love that I have for the church. Listen in here. This is in Ephesians chapter 5, and I'm going to read from 28 to 33 in Ephesians chapter 5. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. That's where I love myself. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound. I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. All right. So this passage has pointed both husbands and wives towards the Lord first, and then towards each other second. So verse 28, love your wives as your own body. Back to my first point about I love myself. So that means we're supposed to love our wives in an aware sort of way, in an immediate sort of way, in an intimate sort of way, diligently and naturally. So to think of me walking through life yesterday, the soul center, my decision-making center of my volition took care of my external body flesh all day long, did a good job, almost as if my soul was one with my body. And exactly that same analogy is used for husbands and wives to say, you are members of one body. You have two souls now with one flesh. So make sure that you take care of them. One flesh, and the two shall become one flesh. It said that all the way back in Genesis. We'll probably talk about that more tomorrow. So of course I took care of myself yesterday. And the idea is, well, of course I took care of my wife. Of course I loved her yesterday. All right, so it doesn't stop there. That's sort of like, of course you love yourself, and that's the first analogy that he uses. The second one is, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ loved the church. And if we go back to verse 25, which I didn't read, the section of the husbands starts with this: husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So there's an intimacy and a sensitivity exhibited in the marriage relationship that is similar to Christ's relationship with the church. And it is his choice in this passage to use marriage as a picture of how properly to understand Christ's behaviors and Christ's feeling. And he says, I nourish this and cherish it. And this is profound. It refers to Christ and the church. But here's what I want to say. Is the context of this passage is about the relationship of husbands and wives. So primarily, it's asking us to bring the truth of Christ and the church into our marriage relationship, and not primarily the other way around. So think about this, is marriage does picture Christ and the church. It is representational in that way. So the marriage relationship does represent and picture Christ and the church. And in the same way, Christ in the church should picture the marriage relationship. So Christ in the church is representational of marriage. But Christ in the church should also be insightful and helpful and practical. So let me just say it another way, is that Christ is doing fine in his relationship with the church. He doesn't need any advice. No criticisms are valid because he can't do any better. He's doing a perfect job. Christ in the church is doing fine, is what I'm saying. So the context of the passage is, well, how about husband and wives in marriage? And specifically, this section is about husbands. So who needs help? Is it Christ in the church? No, he's doing fine. Is it husbands and wives, specifically husbands? Absolutely. We're the one that needs help. So why is there this comparison primarily here? So marriage does offer some insight into the witness of Christ in the church. But the reason that these two relationships are put together and kind of compared and contrasted is to help one and to call one and to charge one. And that is not Christ in the church, it's marriage, specifically husbands. So as Christ loved the church, as he gave himself for her, and he did that in a responsible way. He did it in a way that focused on spiritual beauty. He did it in a way of caring. He did it in a very costly way. Similarly, that's the way husbands are supposed to be loved with their wives. So husbands, humble yourselves with me as we realize that God is pushing his relationship with the church into our marriages. And he's saying, see how much I want you to love her? See how much I want you to care for her. See how much I want you to think about her, to plan for her, to be patient with her, to be sacrificial for her, to be long viewed. See how I want you to bring her to the Lord. Yeah, we're going to start with how much you love yourself. You do that great. But now I'm going to raise the bar. We started there, but we're going to end today with see how much I loved the church. That, husbands, is how I want you to love your wives. It's much more than how much you love yourself. It's how much I love the church. Let's end there today.